Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Community Made podcast, where we talk about all things on how to heal sexual abuse. So, if you have this experience in your life, this podcast is definitely going to be for you. So, now last week we talked about the journey of becoming her, and within that overall arching theme, we really talked about the truth of becoming her or feeling like you again. And today we are really going to talk about grieving the old version of you, the before version of you that had before you had this sexual abuse in your history. Now, for some of you, this is going to look like your childhood. For some of you, it might look like later on. Now, no matter what, you are going to be in a different grieving process as everybody else. It's going to look differently for you than it is the next person, but it is all essentially the same. Okay, I've had to grieve so many versions of me, especially the version of me that I was before I started healing, before I had Aubrey, because for those of you that don't know, I did start healing right when I was pregnant with Aubrey, and I wasn't going to be with her dad. I walked away from him when I was like 13 weeks pregnant. There's like a whole story behind that. We'll just leave that. We'll just leave what we'll save that for another day. And so I walked away and realized, oh my God, I wasn't going to be with him. And then started thinking about how everything from my past really led up to this moment. And I really needed to heal my abuse, because if I had healed my abuse, things would look drastically different right now. So I really had to heal that version of me. And I would love to say that I am fully past the grief of that version of me, but unfortunately I'm not. I didn't realize that I needed to grieve that past version of me. I would say probably about 2 years ago. So I really want you to learn from my mistakes on this, because had I learned to grieve that past version of me, I feel like things would be even more further along for me than they are, especially with, dealing with prosperity and abundance, and really breaking up with poverty and all of those things, and which plays a huge part to finding closure and becoming the best version of you. And I am still in the process of that. So I don't want you to think that I'm sitting here telling you how all the things are going to be done and my life is perfect and all of those things. I still work on this. I still deal with this. I still have triggers and flashbacks and all of the things that are associated with this. So I just want you to know that yes, I too still do the work and still need to be reminded, just like you. So sometimes these messages that I'm saying are as much for you as they are for myself. But you do really, to be able to align to the version that you really want to be, the version of you that you really want to become. Yes, it does have a lot to do with routines and habits and goals, as I mentioned in the previous episode. But in order to really tap into goals and routines and habits that really serve you and take you to that level, a lot of this, before you get to that space, you're really going to want to be able to grieve your past self. This is going to be the version of you before you had this abuse. Grief is really messy and sticky, and it really looks different for everybody. I'm always imagining kind of this grief hump, if you will, or hill, if you will, that we kind of go up, where you have sadness and anger, and then there's this dip down. I don't remember what all of them are. I probably should have looked it up. But the thing is the whole point of this is that you are going to miss this version of you. When you look at pictures there and you are looking at this past version of you, there is going to be some pain there. There is going to be some hurt there. There is going to be some betrayal, anger, sadness. There's going to be all of these emotions involved. Know that that's very real, because you are in the process of grieving yourself, even while you're healing. There's going to be that experience. It's okay for you to feel sad. It's okay for you to miss this version of you. It's okay for you to be angry, even with yourself, right? I know that a lot of what we see out there kind of talks about how revenge is pointed at the other person and all this rage and anger. And as I've learned through my own healing over the last 10 years, is that a lot of my anger and rage is really about me and not the abuser. Now, don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of that towards the abusers in my life, right? But a lot of it I've realized that I've still hung on to has more to do with me than it does to do with them. So I want you to kind of realize that this might look like you are going to be angry with yourself and you're going to be angry with the abuser. All of that is normal. There also might be times where you sink into what we call like depressive episodes, where you feel like you're so shut down by what's happening. Know that it is possible for you to get on the other side of this because it is part of the grief cycle. So, all of it's going to look different, but also while you're grieving, it doesn't mean that you won't have happy moments. It doesn't mean that you can't strive for more. It doesn't mean that you can't take care of your children. It doesn't mean that things can't necessarily look different for you. It just means that you are truly grieving yourself. And so how do you really get through this grief, right? Because that's going to be really important, because the grief might be a never ending thing. There might be things that you come up in a few years that, you really miss being that old trusting version of you, and it makes you really sad. And then there's going to be that grief. That old energy does come up every once in a while for it to be like healed and let go of. But how do you deal with truly grieving yourself when you're really attempting to focus on it? Number one is you want to make sure that you have the right tools and resources. So the tools and resources might be like journaling. It might be being in like a support group or a one-to-one program or a therapist, so that you're able to work through this, work it out, right? So that you have tools to hold space for yourself. While you're going through this grieving phase, I don't necessarily recommend like a lot of silence per se, because what happens when we're in this is that we really start to feed into the thoughts that are in our minds, because we're not really yet feeling safe within our bodies. And as we know, our bodies are feeding so much more information to our minds than our minds are sending to us. So just kind of be aware of that. So maybe it's journaling, maybe it's working with a therapist, maybe it's working with a coach. That might be the case. And you really, whatever you want that to look like is going to be specific for you. You want to have something that you can turn to, that you can really let all the emotions out. Now, the second step or thing that you'll need to help you grieve and process, of course, is going to be a community. Now, I have a Facebook group that you can join. I have a membership that you might be interested in joining as well. But your community doesn't have to look like it's online. It could be just a few people that you absolutely can trust and confide in, and that they're going to support you through this no matter what. Now, when we're talking about someone supporting you, I want you to know that support is going to look different for each individual that you might have in your life. So just kind of be aware of that. But you want at least one person in your life that you can truly turn to, so they can help you through this grieving process. And number three is, of course, to be gentle with yourself. It is okay that you're having these emotions. What you experienced is life altering, and the imprint of the aftermath stays with you for a very long time. And so if you're hard on yourself, if you're criticizing yourself, it's really keeping you from being able to align with a version of you that's confident, that's magnetic, that's happy, that's peaceful and prosperous, right? So you really want to be aware of that. You want to be gentle with yourself. You want to really hold space for yourself and be okay with the emotions that you're really feeling. Now, inside the upcoming workshop, the Becoming Her, Feeling Like You Again After Sexual Assault workshop, we are going to dive so much deeper into this, and we're going to do journaling session and a meditation to really help you be on your way to becoming her so that you can feel like you again. So if you're really interested in that and you want to dive deeper into the grieving process, if you want to dive deeper into becoming her so that you can feel like you again, this workshop is going to be for you. And I'm going to leave the link for it down in the description so that you can check it out. And I will see you in the next episode. See ya.